Welcome to Elevate the Game, where DFW's top leaders drop gems on success, strategy, and legacy with your hosts, George Abreu and Eric Badiwala. Let's get into it.
Good morning. Welcome, everyone. I want to welcome you to our podcast, Elevate the Game. This is an exciting time. We're going to be having guests every week that specialize in different things from all different fields and all different practices and all different types of businesses. So I'm excited to talk about our special guest today and have some great conversations. But before I introduce him, I just want to let everybody know the purpose of the podcast, right? So it's called Elevate the Game. And, basically what we want to do is invite different professionals on here, talk about their businesses, get to know them, and hopefully they can provide insight as to what they're doing and help deliver value to you in whatever it is you're doing, whether it's business or personally. And then obviously we want to do the same on our end. So, we're excited to deliver value to, all of our listeners. And we're excited to talk about some of the cool stuff that we're going to be having on a weekly basis. So without further ado, I want to introduce to you our guest, Anup Pradhan. He's here with us today, and he's actually an orthopedic surgeon, right? Which is totally out of our wheelhouse because we're in the real estate business, but, do know a lot of people in that space. And, so he specializes in joint replacement, robotics, and cutting edge AI. As all of us know, AI is basically taking over the world today. If you're not using ChatGPT, you need to get with the program, man. It makes life a whole lot easier. So I'm personally super interested to hear how AI is revolutionizing the healthcare space. And I'm sure Anup, you're making big waves and splashes in the industry with doing it. So, without further ado, I want to welcome, our guest Anup here today. So Anup, thanks for being here, man. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Eric, for having me.
Yeah, for sure. So let's keep this casual. Let's just talk about, a little bit about who you are, where you're from, and a little bit about your business and what you do.
Yeah, would love to. So my name is Anup Pradhan. I'm an orthopedic surgeon in Dallas, and I've been in practice here for about 13 years. I think what's been interesting in the last year or so is that outside of just practicing orthopedic surgery, I launched an AI business with a co-founder to try to solve some of the workflow problems that I saw. I always wanted to be an entrepreneur, but one of the things that I wanted to be able to solve, like a real problem that I saw in my day-to-day life. So that's kind of the origin of how we started. The business is called OnCall AI. Background, I finished up my medical training and moved to Dallas in 2012, and then I've been in practice here since then. For the last 6 years, I've been the head of orthopedics at Medical City Dallas, which is one of the major cities in Dallas. But I had a busy practice, and I was, seeing tons of patients, full days where at the end of the day, I just had a ton of work left to do. Like I would see my patients running from room to room, and at the end of the day, I would just be looking at this, stack of charts that I had to do and notes that I had to create. So I started using ChatGPT to help me with some of those workflows, just offhand, just like help, write a letter for a kid who needed some time out from an ACL surgery or like just these small things that probably a lot of people are doing with ChatGPT. But then I saw how helpful it was. And I was like, there's some real workflow problems that we can solve. So we started hunting for these problems. We said, let's find the problems that are going to move the needle the most for the people that we're working with. So one of the things that we saw, in my household, I'm an orthopedic surgeon, my wife's a dermatologist, and between the two of us, in those two fields, we communicate with our patients a lot. Like if someone has surgery with me, they'll call me, with questions or complications. For example, like after a knee replacement, one of the things you have to do is you have to be on blood thinners, and if you're on blood thinners, or even if you skip your blood thinners, or you can have a complication called a DVT where you'll get calf pain. So I'll get a phone call 8 o'clock at night, hey, I have calf pain, and that can be a serious problem. So I'll have to send someone to the emergency room, say you got to go get an ultrasound, got to make sure that's not a pulmonary embolism that's going to go to your heart and lungs and be life threatening. So that's something that would happen off hours on the phone, often wasn't documented in the chart, and then wasn't also sent to insurance for billing. Likewise, like for my wife, she's a dermatologist. People would text her a picture of a rash, people who had her cell phone, and she could call in a prescription, treat them, and she could do the entire scope of her care. But that care never made it into the chart. So insurance wasn't going to pay her. She was doing her job, but she wasn't going to get paid for it. So we said, hey, this this is an inefficiency in healthcare where, if we looked at our attorney friends, they would, if you talk to them on the phone about your legal case, they would jot down the minutes as they should and send you the bill, or whoever is supposed to pay the bill. In healthcare, we have a third party payer, so we don't do that with our patients, but we do need to send it to insurance. So, the disconnect was that we saw that there was care that was happening, like that episode of care for my wife might be a minute, or for me, it might be 2 or 3 minutes. But to go and sit down and write a note for it would take another 15, 20 minutes. And then you have to find the codes and get it to your biller, and they have to send it to insurance. So there's all this work that goes around. Like, we can make these like knowledge decisions, but then you have this whole workflow that wasn't being captured. So that's what we said, hey, like, let's solve this problem with AI. So that's what we built. That's our company, OnCall AI. I'm happy to tell you more about it, but that's kind of where we are. And that's a problem that we're solving for people that we're working with.
Nice, man. That's super interesting. It's kind of like almost, these AI note takers that are on these Zoom meetings, right? They like
Yeah,
take all the notes for you and like do all that. And how important is that, right? Because if you can't get the information to get billed, then you're not getting paid, right? So, I
that's
mean,
right.
it's
Yeah.
super important. So, man, how long has the business been around? And, did you guys just get started with this? How many years have you been doing this now?
We started at the end of last year. So myself and I have a co-founder named David Freed. He's in San Francisco, and we had to prove a lot of things to make this thing work. So one, we had to prove that the actual the concept would work. We had
Yep.
to prove that the insurance companies would accept these claims and actually pay for them. There's a big misconception in healthcare that if you do something on the phone that you can't bill for it, and a lot of doctors will do like things on the phone for free and just not claim that revenue. So we had to really prove that, and I proved that to a lot of customers. So to answer your question, we started at the end of last year. We have about 500 customers now. We're just getting into some larger clinics, like 100 plus provider clinics, and our goal is to get to pretty much everyone. Hopefully, we'll get to hospitals and enterprise, and working on some of those deals now. Um, but the way we started, we said, this is the concept, and then we kind of hacked together some tools. Like we used some chat GPT, we used like a Zoom dialer, and we just said, hey, can we actually like create a phone call that we can record? So we had to prove that first, and then we trained our own LLM to say, hey, this is a medical conversation, and what we'd like you to do is we'd like you to go in and filter out all the non-medical portions. So like someone's telling you about their spring break, someone's telling you about their vacation that they just took. We don't need that in the medical notes, so let's filter all of that out. Let's rewrite it the way that a doctor would write it. So there's a certain structure in medical notes where you talk about basically you talk about the subjective things like, I have pain here, the objective things like, if I examine this patient, they've got swelling in their knee. And then you talk about your assessment, which is, this is my diagnosis or my assessment of what is going on. And then you've got a plan, which is like, this is now number 1, 2, 3 other things that we need to do about it. So there's a certain medical notes are not just like free form. They're very like structured. So we have to train our AI to take that information and put it in the right sections. And so we built that, and then we had to take those and send it to various insurance companies. We sent it to Medicare, make sure. So we sent it to CMS and make sure Medicare would pay people for it, because what we don't want to do is create work that is not going to be valuable. We also didn't want to create anything that was going to create any complication for people of like billing things that weren't billable. So we had to prove out all these different workflows. So we went from concept at the end of last year. We got into the App Store in February, and then we've been just kind of growing and marketing, getting to more and more people. And then it's just growth and sales and talking to physicians about really capturing the value that they're providing, especially in a climate where reimbursements are getting cut. People like every year, CMS cuts reimbursements like 3%, 2%. So, doctors' salaries are just getting chiseled away at, and we're trying to get people back to where they want to be in terms of income as well.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. And I think, yeah, and AI is all about how you train it, right? If you
Yeah.
don't train it, then it's not gonna, AI is almost like somebody that's got like 30 doctor degrees, right? Doctoral degrees. And then,
Yes.
but
Yeah.
as long as you train them, they can do exactly what you tell them. So,
That's right.
man, and I think, and this may not be 100% accurate, but, I do have some doctor friends and stuff, but I'm assuming that this AI, you can train it to like obviously follow HIPAA regulations and all that,
Yes.
right? Because
Yeah.
I would imagine if the AI is ultimately submitting this, I don't know if it submits it directly to the insurance companies or you guys ultimately do that. You guys train it to follow all that stuff, right?
Yeah, so you have to get for us to get into the marketplace and be accepted by any clinic, we have to be HIPAA certified. So we have like partners who come in and like we have encryption levels that we have to go through, and then we
Yeah,
have partners that come in and they verify that our software has no ability to leak outside of our system and protects
yeah,
any personal health information, which makes it HIPAA compliant. Most enterprises want it to be like SOC 2 compliant, which basically is a review of all your internal policies, the way that you handle like your employees' computers, the browsers, where just making sure that there's no ability for there to be any data leak, which in healthcare is just really critical. Like you have to really protect your user
yeah.
data. Yeah.
Yeah, so security is super important, and that's cool. And like I said, we do have a lot of doctors, that listen, and I
Yeah,
think that's great. I mean, I think security is always number one.
for sure.
And hopefully maybe this is something that they could potentially use. So, Anup, is this something that every doctor could use? Like, is this
It is.
same process? I mean, who can't use this product if you're in that space?
So there's a lot of rules around billing and what you can do. So I would say that anyone can use the documentation part. So if there's a physician who's going to call a patient, or now we branch out in a couple other things which I can tell you about. But if you're having conversations with patients, you can use this. There's a couple of branches of medicine, like the extreme is like if you're a pathologist, you're dealing with like autopsies, or if you're like a radiologist, you're not really talking to patients. But anyone who's having like clinical conversations with patients can use it.
Yeah,
That's one, like what you said, the AI is so good that it's basically trained as a specialist in every specialty. So when
yeah,
you go, it's not like a orthopedic background. It doesn't have like a pediatric background. It can really work with any specialty. What we found is that the people who use it the most are like OBs and pediatricians. Like one comment that my wife made about it was that that's the two doctors that I found myself calling. Is like when my kid is sick, I call my pediatrician. If I'm pregnant and I'm having a problem, I call my OB. So they have a
yeah,
lot of volume of this. And then there's specific rules about what can be billed and what can't be billed. And that, like, we don't do the billing part. We just give people the information that they need to do the billing.
got
So,
it.
but anyone can use it. I think if anyone's having clinical conversations, you want that in your charts and documented. You don't want a scenario where you say, I said this, you didn't do it, and now you're having a complication. Like he said, she said that, and it's just to protect yourself. You really want those conversations to be in the chart, and it's good for communication with your team. Like if I have 3 nurses and 2 PAs in my office, and I tell a patient, you need to go pick up this antibiotic, but I didn't put it in the chart, then no one knows. And then if they call in and my nurse is talking to them, they're just like, I'm, it's just a black hole of information. So we were trying to fill that
Yeah.
gap.
Man, that's awesome. OBs, pediatricians, if you're listening, this
Yeah.
stuff is for you. So, man, tell me, like, obviously you guys started this about a year ago, and it sounds like you've had some pretty rapid growth already. I think you had about like 500 customers already, or 500 doctors.
Yeah.
What's your competition like? AI, you're seeing AI pop up everywhere. How are you guys staying ahead of the game? Are you kind of the first to do something like this? What's your competition look like?
So our competition in that like specific niche is not much. Like there's no one else who's really focused on that at the moment. But in the AI, like in healthcare scribe space, there's a few big competitors. So Abridge is a privately held company that's I think it's been valued at like 6 or 7 billion, and they're in a lot of the bigger hospitals like Johns Hopkins, Mayo. Microsoft has a product called DAX. There's a few others like Freed and Nuance that work on all of those products are scribes that work in the office. So, for example, like if you were to come see me as a patient and you and I are talking in the office and I'm examining you just like a normal doctor visit, what those products do is they put a microphone either through your laptop or a physical microphone in the room, and they do a similar process with the conversation that's happening in the room. So
Mhm.
they're doing this ambient listening and taking that information and turning it into a note. What we're doing, we've added that product, which I can tell you more about as well. But what we started with was said, hey, that stuff's already being covered. Like we're already capturing that. You were already going to get paid for that. Like if I saw you and I submitted a bill, I was already going to get paid for that. What we said is like, hey, there's this whole like pocket of revenue that no one's getting yet. Like they're just ignoring it. At least most doctors. A few doctors we're capturing that pretty well, but not most. So we said, hey, there's this like ignored revenue. Like let's bring that onto the table where you're already doing the work. You just have to go and collect the money that you're doing for the work that you're doing. So in that niche, not a lot of competition. There's several scribes that are in the clinic space. we took the same, like we built all that technology for the phone, and you said, hey, we can do the same thing in the clinic space. So now when you use our product, you can use it either on the phone or for any in-person visit. So like if I saw you in a clinic, or if I'm in the hospital, I'm seeing you, if like you're admitted to the hospital and I'm seeing you as your doctor, I can just open my phone to the app and just let it record, and it'll turn those conversations into notes too. So we've taken the idea of, basically trying to capture conversations that are happening, and making sure that they're documented well in the chart so that it's better care for patients, better liability protection, better revenue flow.
Man, that's awesome. Sounds like you guys have done your due diligence on this stuff. And, what's great about it is you can always continue to train the AI, if you want to stay ahead of
Yes.
the
Yeah,
game.
it
It's
keeps
like,
getting better and better.
yeah, like I always compare things to, basketball gods. I like basketball, like Kobe Bryant, LeBron James, Michael
Yeah.
Jordan. These guys are always masters of their craft, right? And
Yeah.
the more work you put in, the better that AI gets, right? And if you're at it every single day, on a weekly basis, monthly basis, whatever it is, training this AI, you're just going to be much more ahead of everybody else, you know? So I think
Yeah.
that's the cool part, thing about AI is that this, it's limitless, basically.
Yeah, it's amazing to me when I meet people who I met someone the other day who said that they hadn't used any AI things yet, and I was like, man, I don't know how you're, because there's no, you can't, to your point, AI, the ability to process data is so strong. There's no way a human brain can
No way.
really hold on to that much data and compute through, like our AI knows the entire ICD-10 diagnosis book, which is like 10,000 plus diagnoses that exist in the medical space. That,
Wow.
when you write a note, you have to say like, this person, like some of the basic ones would be like diabetes or hypertension, but like there's 10,000 of them. There's not just like the big ones. And there's no way that anyone has a grasp on all those diagnoses, but the AI does, just because it's so good at handling data and listening, and processing, that humans aren't going to be able to compete with data processing. There's things that we can do better, like surgery. AI is still a long way away from doing surgery. Robotics, I don't know. I've seen some pretty impressive robotic stuff recently, and maybe it'll get there. The last few videos I saw of some of the robots, and what they're doing, like in China in the last week or two, the first time I thought, maybe they're going to get to where they're doing surgery, but that's still like very technically challenging. It exists in a 3D space. Information, we just can't compete with AI with processing
Yeah.
information.
Yeah, and there's nothing like the steadiness of a hand, I would say. Sometimes like the
Yeah,
personal human touch, when obviously I've never done surgery, but I would imagine,
yeah,
there's nothing like that. But man,
yeah,
so I guess that transitions into, like if somebody, wants to get started and let's say they're a doctor or physician listening and they don't use AI, what would you
yeah.
suggest to them? Like, how can this skyrocket their business by doing this? I mean, you said it now. I mean, there's no way the human brain could process all this data rapidly. I go into Chat GPT, I could put in 5 different contracts in there and say, analyze this and tell me which is the best one, and it spits it out in 30 seconds. I can't
Yeah.
do that fast. There's no way.
Yeah.
So in other
That's,
words, what
yeah.
would you suggest to a doctor or physician listening, that isn't using AI, and why should they use this?
Yeah. I'm thinking back to one of the scenarios that really stuck in my mind. Like I was looking at, and it wasn't related to our business, but I was looking at, like you said, I had a contract from one of the insurance providers. And so physicians will have like contracts which will like delineate how much they're paid for different codes. So they had sent me, it was I won't say who it was, which insurance provider. I'll just leave that out. But
Yeah.
they sent me a contract, and it was about 100 pages long. So it was something that there was no way that I was going to be able to process effectively. And basically, it was supposed to have some things that were left out of network and some things that were in network. And it was so 100. I had this 100-page contract, and we had specifics that like we'd given them that said like this is what we want in our contract with you, which they were supposed to abide by. And they sent me this contract, and I'm like, there's no way I can read this, and I could go hire an attorney to review it for me. But why don't I just throw it in Chat GPT and just see what it says? And I just dropped the PDF into Chat GPT, and I said, hey, these our conversations were, and I just copied the emails like these are conversations we had about what was supposed to be in this. Can you just verify that this is what this contract says, and just give me anything else that you think might be concerning in this contract? And the contract was written in a way that would basically have negated everything that we had discussed as being appropriate for what we had negotiated. So and the way the AI went through it, it said, it's if you read clause, X on page 33 with clause Y on 50, and uh, clause Z on page 75, you'll see that that basically doesn't hold water. And I was like, man, there's no way I would have been able to put this together. I doubt an attorney would have been able to spend enough time to put it together either. So I
Yeah.
remember thinking that, if I hadn't used AI here, I would have signed a contract that wasn't what I thought it was, and I would have put myself in harm's way. So that's when I saw the power of it. If I was just getting started with it, I would say, what I told, I was talking to someone at at an open house at an office the other day, the person who told me that they hadn't used AI, and I said, just download ChatGPT and just ask it to plan your next vacation. Just say, I'm going to,
Yeah.
I'm going to Mexico City next week. I'm there for 3 days, and I want to go to a nice meal, and I want to see some good outdoor shows. And you'll think it's such a basic question, but man, it just gives you such detailed information because it knows the data. It can think through things like a travel agent would, and it's just really powerful. So if you're just getting started, I mean, it's just eye opening on what it can do. To me, I think it's amazing.
Yeah, 100%. I agree, man. And that's good advice. Just go on to ChatGPT. It's free. You can go on there. You don't even need a paid account and test it out, and
Yeah,
ask it to plan out your day or, some type of, vacation or whatever it is. I actually, I'm part of entrepreneur. It's actually called Entrepreneurs Organization. I had a guy plan one of our retreats
yeah,
through ChatGPT, and it was wild, what they were able
yeah,
to spit out in just a short period of time because it searches all the platforms, and there's no way that you could do that fast enough. Sure, you could put Google searches together, but it's going to take you probably an hour or two, to do it.
yeah,
So anyway, man, that's awesome, man. This is super exciting, and hopefully AI doesn't take over the world totally.
yeah.
We still do
It's
need
still got
that
a ways to
human.
go. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
we still need that human touch, but it's a very helpful aid. So, man, what's kind of wrapping up here. What's on the outlook for your company in the next like 6 to 12 months? And if somebody wants to get in contact with you, like what's your website or how's the best way to get in contact with you?
Yeah, so our website is getoncall.ai, so GTONCALL.ai. And our app is called OnCall AI. It's available in the Apple App Store or Android App Store. So any physician wants to try it, or PA, NP, it works for any healthcare provider. You can just go download it. You get a 2-week free trial and just test it out and just see if it's useful. And I would say if you're having any of these conversations, you're not using AI, it will shorten your day. Like if I look back at the days where I had sat staring at 40 notes, just wishing that I could go home and not have to sit there and type out or dictate 40 notes. And it just saves so much time. So you could try it out for a couple of weeks and just see if it helps you, and submit the bills, see if you're getting paid for the telehealth that you're doing, which, you probably are not, but you probably will. And you'll see how much value that can add. And on the horizon for our company, we're growing. We're just adding more partners. We're adding integrations with EMRs. That's a really valuable thing. So for workflows, like what we generate this document, but it has to get to the biller, and it's most healthcare platforms are really closed. They're really siloed pieces of information because of safety concerns, like you're saying. When you have information that has to be protected, you've got all these guard walls up in place where you can't access in or out. So what we're doing is we're partnering with EMR companies and working on making those streamlined so that right now you can. Well, we have a lot of them already done. Some of them we're working on. The ones that where we're not integrated, you can copy and paste information from one platform to the other. But the best is when we're integrated, you just hit a button and it's like done. So you just talk to your patient like you normally would, and you hit a button, and then you've moved on with your day. You're not doing anything else. So it can just make life a lot simpler for people. And yeah, so we'd love to get out to as many people, help as many people as we can.
Yeah, man, awesome. It sounds like you guys were really, changing the game per se, and excited
I
to see
appreciate
what
it.
the future's
Thanks.
like for you. Appreciate you being on here today and sharing your insights. I could see how this could definitely benefit people. If I was a, doctor or physician listening, I'm taking notes, right? If there's a way to improve my business and help me get paid faster, in other words,
Yeah,
and more accurately, I mean, to me, that sounds like something I could benefit from, man. So thanks so much for being here today, Anoop.
my
This was
pleasure.
awesome,
Thank
man.
you so
I
much.
think this AI stuff is super intriguing. And for those that don't know about it, it's exciting, right? It's like
It is. Yeah,
it's super exciting, and it's just, man, the world is changing so fast always, and it's going to get even faster with AI.
yeah.
Um, so anyway, man, appreciate you being on here today. This was a great conversation, and hopefully, some of our listeners today have been able to get some takeaways. I definitely got some takeaways with it. and how I can, continue to try to improve AI in our business, and it just motivates me to kind of automate more things. It's really finding the time to do that.
Yeah.
But why try to reinvent the wheel when somebody like you is already doing it, right? And they can come to you and get the service from you. So this was great. Appreciate
Thank
it,
you so much
Anup.
for having me. Yeah, I really
Let's
appreciate it. Thanks
yeah,
for sharing our story.
let's hang on for a couple more minutes, and but for now we'll just say till next time for the audience.
Sounds good. Thanks, Eric.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to Elevate the Game. If you're a mover and shaker in DFW with game to share, apply to be a guest at elevatethegamepodcast.com/guest.